All right, we're looking at some testing.
All right. So what we're doing is so this create timeline events. So on an incident, you can now you can add timelines. So on an incident, you can see what's happened in the timeline. This is the create timeline event component, which I split between create and the actual form itself. So it used to be the form was within create. Now it wraps around this form, and also the edit timeline event wraps around this form.
Is the form like
Cool.
presentational component, and this does all the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We can run it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the form is presentational. I don't think you really need to. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so edit and create show the same form. It's just they handle, so they need to know like what is the data that's sent back to the wrapper and do the right Apollo query. I just found out that so I was asking for help with Natalia, and so I'm passing this function to handle the submit, and I just found out that's incorrect. It should be emitting a event with the details, so we can also rewrite that. Yeah. So currently my test is failing because the so when we do this create incident timeline event, sorry. Okay, when we do create incident timeline event, we run this Apollo query, and before it runs, then it runs update, and in update cache, it takes the timeline event, and it updates the cache with this information. So what Natalia was showing me is here is the sample where she set this up, where when you write the you can set the cache to have data. I wasn't doing that, which is why the test was failing. Now I am doing that somewhere. Yep. So now I have data for cache. So before, when I create the mock Apollo, I do this same thing, clients, default client cache, write query. I give it the query. I'm not 100% sure this is correct. This is the GraphQL query mutation. I don't know if that's in the right space. I give it the data, which is
I think you would want to give it the query, not necessarily the mutation.
Yeah, I think that's so it needs to have the query that would normally get data, so that the mutation that returns a bit of new data knows how to append that to the existing data, I think.
So this one.
Yeah. Is this yes. So this, there's some sort of local, is this local cache stuff?
It looks like the sort of standard behavior of when you create or update a record on a cruddy type page where you've already retrieved them, and rather than refreshing, making a round trip to the server to update to re-pull the whole list, you're just sort of going to say, oh, let's slot this into that cached list that I've already got, so we don't have to make another trip. Which was something awesome that I think Natalia showed me a year or so ago when I was just calling .refresh or something after inserting or updating a record.
Yep. Yeah, it's always a weird, it feels so weird though to like write query. Like I always feel like that's a weird thing to do. There is.
Yeah, I've never really thought about the concept of what does that actually mean. What is it actually?
There's a new way of, there's multiple. Unfortunately, in Apollo land, like there's 3 to 4 different ways to do the thing. And I'm trying to find. There's another way which actually might be easier to test.
I'll just have a look because I've definitely done this somewhere before as well, and see if I'm using the same thing or not.
This is an example Natalia gave. Is that useful?
I think Paul's suggesting that maybe there's a couple of similar. I'm using Write Query as well in the one that I've done recently.
I think. Oh gosh, never mind. I think that's the one. We don't have to worry about it. I guess what I'm remembering is I know that because we've recently updated Apollo, and I know that there is a way for Apollo to completely forget about an object. So like imagine if an object showed up in multiple queries and I removed the objects, I potentially would have to remove it from multiple queries. Like that's a scary place to be. Since Apollo actually like keeps track of global IDs, you can have Apollo forget about like a global ID. So I think I was confused because I was thinking, instead of doing this write query thing, we use this like remove from cache this global ID thing, but that was only on the remove operation. Here, where you're adding something or updating something, I think this is still needed. So and it's still totally valid way to do it. So please just
Cool.
for what I'm saying. I'm sorry. So yeah, so this makes sense. So you're getting some test failures. Are there other, besides getting a test to pass, are there other objectives with what you're wanting to do here?
So what I want to do is, what I actually want to do is I want to test that when I create an incident timeline event, and then I do this Apollo, which will have a mocked result. If there are no errors, what I want to know is that this event has been emitted, so that the form will be hidden. That's what I'm actually trying to test.
Cool. Yeah.
So it was passing before because this just errored out, and then we weren't. So there's a test that says like, don't close it if we're adding another event, or don't close it if there's errors, which passed because it errored here and then it never got here. And then it just checked to see if this was emitted or not. And it wasn't. So all green.
Yeah. So now we're trying to get it. That's actually passed.
Yeah. So we're just testing to see if we get here.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm noticing, sorry, there's the same catch twice. Is that catch like in case something wrong happens in the then?
Oh yeah, this might be my mistake. I didn't quite understand why we had like an error being received and then also catching an error. So I think I duplicated it.
No. Well, I would actually leave the one. I would leave the one at the bottom. Yeah, I would definitely leave the one at the bottom.
Because this errors means like we did get a result back. It's just the result was.
And that's what GraphQL tends to do most of the time.
Yeah.
It very rarely would return like an error 500. It tends to return a success HTTP response, but with errors inside of the response.
Yeah.
So that's why we tend to check that, I think. But I guess the other one would be more catastrophic failure. The network's down, or an error 500 or whatever.
Yeah.
But they should both bubble up to this catch, right? Is that what we're saying?
This one,
if the one at the if it's at the bottom, if it's at the middle, then that catch will.
Oh, you're handling it. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm just showing the user that they should have put details in or whatever.
Because what I've seen before is I think that you kind of like throw in if there are errors, so that the same
that makes
catch
sense.
block is used to handle any type of error, but often you've probably got a different path that you want to take. Maybe if you get an error back from the server, GraphQL error, you might want to display that error. Whereas if it's back something that's gone catastrophically wrong, you might, I don't know, want to show a generic error or something.
Yeah, like you're right. We do show
which
it,
looks like what you're kind of
but...
doing, isn't it? Yeah, you're getting the errors back if they come back. Whereas if it's an actual exception that's been thrown, then you've got a generic. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Cool. Yeah, I was reading this and I was like, oh, I think we're doubling up. So I deleted it and then I put it back and then I forgot about it. So yeah, thanks.
No, you're good.
Thanks so I don't be embarrassed of the merge request.
Are we trying to get this test to pass right now?
Yeah, we are. Sorry. Yeah. So missing field project, I don't understand. Like, where can I find like a description of what it is I'm expecting?
Can we
Does
see?
That make sense?
Can we see the stack trace for that and see where in the code we're doing this is happening in line 6. Oh, it is happening there.
So can you check that your mock data matches the definition in your get timeline events query?
Yeah, that's basically what you would need.
So the mock.
So your data for cache, timeline. Can
you open up the query?
Yeah.
That's the one. So it's expecting. Yeah, so you haven't got project. So the data for cache should kind of look like this, I think. It should have a project and an ID, and then.
Yeah, the data for cache looks like it was written for the
yes. So I see what you do. Do you remember a minute ago you changed your write query because you had it using the mutation rather than the query? Yeah. I think that's you're populating the cache with the mutation result instead of the query result.
Yeah,
I think
that makes sense. So what I need to do is create.
Sorry, Paul, you're probably saying it much more succinctly and interpretably than I would. But
no, you're good.
When I actually think I might understand.
I'm gonna rant a little bit. Every single time I write tests involving Apollo, we spent a couple of pairing sessions working on.
Let me sorry, Paul, just interrupt you for 2 seconds. So the easiest way, again, could be wrong, James, but the easiest way to do this might be to actually go to open up your GDK, hit that endpoint, or load the page, the view, whatever it is, and sniff the sort of JSON response that comes back, and then you can just copy and paste it to some extent.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's fair.
Okay. Cool.
Otherwise, you'll do the same as me. You'll spend half an hour trying to create the mock data, and you'll keep forgetting like, the type or something. And sometimes you can just cheat and copy and paste. Sorry, Paul, go on.
No. Well, what I was gonna say is we had we were working on a utility to generate that mock data based on.
I remember that.
It's gonna be so.
Yeah.
But
who were you pairing? That was either a pairing
friend. He's not at GitLab anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
So he took that whole initiative with him.
You're hoping it will live on though. Yeah,
I'm hoping. I'm hoping we can get back to it sometime.
Cool.
There's some GraphQL. Oh man.
This one, right?
Well, you're going to get multiple queries per request. So we keep going. There's one with the project. Is that one have? No, that's issue stuff, right? That's not it. The next one.
If you
sorry,
check
I'm not sure what you...
is the payload, was this one I missed? I wasn't paying enough attention. Has it get timeline events? That's query 1. Is that right? So
yeah, so it should be that.
So that's the payload. So if you flip back to the preview
Oh.
again and then take the response 1, hopefully.
Yep.
That's you were on it.
So 1
no, you were on it.
and 1. Okay.
I think that's right.
I think you can right click and that might
get with
copy
that.
the full object. Or is it just, did it do just that one? Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Gotta put it
Good
in
work.
the place. Oh,
Oh, it doesn't just automatically. Oh, so got one extra.
I'm sure there's a magic button that you can press to remove. Oh, that's it, isn't it? That's it.
Right. Okay, cool.
So you can slim it down
Get rid of some
later,
of this
but
shit.
that should be enough to pass. Oh, yeah.
Let's remove this embarrassing bit before anyone notices. Right? Okay, cool. So now,
You mean you don't spell hello with a W in your country, James?
I was writing. I don't know why I keep doing it, but then I was like, oh, this is a good problem because I was putting in the edit. And I had my stupid mistake staring me in the face for days, being like, hurry up and finish this so you can edit it. Okay.
I think I'm still seeing a similar error,
Okay.
but
Same problem. But maybe we don't need data. Because it already says data. All right, cool. Different error.
a different error. Awesome.
Okay.
You like it when it's
Cool.
that easy?
Close one. So what should happen here is we have a successful Apollo mutation. And then if there's no errors, is there another event, which is by default false. So we should get this event emitted, but we don't.
Can you scroll down and see any other information with this test failure that popped out? There's no other. Okay.
No. So we can check to see if we're getting this far. This is what.
Well, can we try something? You're using VS Code, right?
Mhm.
Oh man.
I found out the other week, and I haven't really played with it as much as I'd like to. In VS Code, if you do you know how to open a new terminal with that little plus in the bottom right hand corner? If you click the arrow on it rather than clicking on the plus, and you select JavaScript debug terminal,
okay,
and then you put a breakpoint where you were going to add your console log on line 83 on the right hand side. Stick a little breakpoint. Oh, you don't have to. No, you don't have to write anything. Just click in the margin to stick a breakpoint in there.
The red.
That's it.
Bubble.
That's it. Yeah.
okay.
And then if you do your yarn jest and the file name in this debug terminal, you should see some magic.
Can we focus the test that we want to pass before we run it?
Just the single one.
Yeah.
I'm already running incidents.
If we just put F on 107, we could fit.
I'm sorry?
Just that one test that's failing.
So
line
just change
Right.
it to a fit.
Yeah, and I think I see what's going on too. But
What?
I think on line 109, we might need to call wait for
Oh,
promise.
that was right.
That
This is exciting.
Whoa,
would
deep.
be
I hope
a
it works
biggie
under
if I-
pressure while we're being filmed.
Yeah, this is fancy. I wasn't aware of doing it this way. I had other ways of doing it.
Oh,
It
So
failed.
that
Yeah.
suggested it didn't get
Line 109.
that.
You want to
far.
Oh,
call
my
for
the
promises.
it's not lit up. Oh, it is there.
It's not
Sorry.
going to hit it because so we don't need to put a breakpoint, but we need to call wait for promises.
Oh, that's yep. That makes sense.
So this should change. Should change some things.
Okay, still no. Can we try a breakpoint here and see if we
Should
can
be
actually
able
get it
to,
to
yeah.
stop?
Sure. Yeah. Whoa, so fancy.
Whoa, look at that.
So if you hit
Oh,
It is a game changer, despite the fact that I haven't really used it since I discovered it.
Okay.
We're
How
so
do
used
you-
to the. Go on.
I was
Yeah.
just asking, how do you interact with it? Do you have like, is the console on the bottom working? Can you log
Yeah,
any
so you
bars?
can, if you look left hand side, you've got access to all the variables. You've got a watch pane, so you can right click and watch variables, and you can just hover over stuff as well to, you know, for
Impressive.
layman's like me that are used to the sort of C# IDEs, etc., where you do a lot of kind of watching and hovering and.
Nice.
what are you saying, Lee? It's console log.
What's
you?
wrong with the boring
Console
console?
log's not good enough for you, Lee?
But it definitely seems to be skipping, although like you say, your breakpoint doesn't seem to be sort of
doesn't
on
do
the
this
right hand
breakpoint, does
side.
it?
I don't know why
It's
it's
got it listed here.
yeah. I don't know what it is about that it's not liking, to be honest. So we might have to try your old school console log and see if it logs to the console. If it doesn't, then it might be that it's not getting that far, or there might be some crazy reason that I don't understand why you can't do that.
That's a good idea.
Oh, and play. Oh, took too long. Yep. Because we had a pause.
That's so
Good.
that's-
That's good. We should have just had a look at the data.
oh wait, can you leave it there where we're testing now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh look, it's error, creating the error. Can on line 107, can we change it to fit? On line 107,
Okay. Fit.
fit for
That's the one.
What does that mean?
that means focus it. It will be the only test that runs.
I see. Sorry, I heard before you say we're changing it to fit, and I did not understand.
I know, no, I know. I tend to not be a great navigator over the phone.
Cool. All right. So we have an error
Okay,
in our mock data,
which
is
seems
not
like
what I expected.
yeah, exactly. So let's go to maybe where we're doing that create error string. What would that be? Or would that be?
Where
Looks like it's coming from there.
okay,
Create
so
that
this is used to
error.
test the. This is used when we test like how does it respond to an error? We
Right.
give it this
Do we use it above it at all?
information.
Do we use it anywhere else in this file?
Imported.
Imported.
Oops. Another failed error. So no.
Where does add event response get, where does that get set up?
Add, where?
The variable, this add event response on line 80, I guess. There it is. Where does that get initialized?
Okay. So we have the response, which doesn't have the error.
I see, but then we pass this thing to create mock Apollo provider. Where does that get called?
Create Marco Polo
The
provider.
Yeah.
Also here.
All right. To ensure some determinism, I'm going to share my favorite way of doing this.
Okay.
So if you go up to create mock Apollo provider, I find it to be really nice when we can set these things up and then just mutate them a little bit. We set them up fresh every single run, but then we can just mutate them a little bit.
Okay.
When needed. And so that's where the request handlers are fantastic, because I just need to have a reference to the response handler, and I can replace what that spy returns with anywhere in the code.
Sorry, can you explain to me what a request handler is?
So when you pass these to the create mock Apollo, this is basically a map implemented as a 2D array, but it's a map of Apollo query / mutation to function. And that function, we can put a spy there, which we already are doing.
Okay.
So here's, let's do this. Let us, yes. Can we create some shared variables next to our wrapper?
Here you mean?
Wherever we are creating that wrapper component thing that gets destroyed and stuff.
Which wrapper component? This?
Just usually in most of our tests, we have some sort of like shared variable that, yes, there it is, let wrapper. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's create a let after let wrapper. I usually right below line 63. I usually hate lets, but they find themselves, I find them to be highly useful in organizing determinism in tests. Let's create response spy here. Spy, yes. Response Sky. That actually may be a cool movie. We don't have to optimize it. Just declare it. Let's declare response spy. And I'm thinking way ahead, but let's also put the Apollo provider here.
I'll move it here.
Let's just do let Apollo provider.
Oh.
Sweet. All right. Now here's the beautiful thing. Above line 81, where we do our after each, we can do it before each. And we will set up the same response spy and the same Apollo provider for everything. Yeah. Sweet. So let's move what we did on that. We have a const where we're creating this mock Apollo spy thing. If you go up to the very top. Yeah. Up. This one on line 17. We're going to move that into the before each. Okay. And we'll replace the const. This is going to be response spy now.
I'm sorry.
So this is now response spy. And we don't need to do a const. We're not redeclaring it. We're gonna set it up. Yeah. And so then we don't need to do the mock reset on line 84 because every before each, we're guaranteed to have a fresh thing. So we don't need. And then let's go back up to our function where we create Apollo provider. So I usually like to put these functions inside of that big describe so that they have access to those shared variables. So I'd recommend doing that.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get rid of it's not going to take any arguments, the create mock Apollo provider. Yep, we'll throw a response spy into there in line 31. Yep. And if you scroll down, then do we return something from here? Yes, great. Okay. And so then that's, if you scroll down, that's what we'll initialize. If you go down to the before each, after we create a response spy, we'll create mock Apollo provider and assign that to our shared variable. But it's going to have to be after we do the response spy.
So the Apollo, after.
Yep. Yep. Okay, great. So then our mount component does not need to take mock Apollo.
Sorry.
That's my fault, right?
So then our mock component, our create component function or mounts component does not need to take mock Apollo. We just pass in the shared Apollo provider that we're creating fresh deterministically every time.
Sorry.
So
This function.
Well, we don't have to call the function because it's there in that shared variable land. So we
Okay.
go
Right.
mount component. We just get rid of the mock Apollo argument.
Line 66.
66.
That's it. Just
get rid of this.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so then on line 75,
yeah,
do Apollo provider. And so here's what's really cool with the way Jeff's spies work. Yeah, you don't even, you could just do I forgot what they call it, but you didn't need a colon there. Yeah. So what's really
it's got the same name. You can just spot on.
What's really cool with the way Just Spies work is I can change the way the spy behaves. I can mutate it after it's created. And so now we're going to go down to all of those mock Apollo calls.
This one?
Yeah, all of those default ones, that's great. We can get rid of those. Those aren't needed anymore. Yep. Yep. That's not needed anymore. Is there any other calls to this thing? If you scroll down, there's where we're doing mock Apollo.
Mock Apollo.
Yeah, keep going down. We don't need that.
Is this one?
Yeah.
Hang on, that's the one we just made, right? No.
Well, no, we don't need that. This is inside something else.
We don't need this at all.
We do need the mount component, but we don't need the mock Apollo stuff.
I see.
Okay. And yeah, so we get rid of line 99 too. All right, can we do one more search? Can we search for where we're using that error response?
Yeah. This one?
Yes, we can. We don't need add event response. And so what we would do is change response spy to do this. So instead of add event response, we'd still do the mock resolve stuff just like we did, but we would do response spy.
Sorry. Response spy equals this?
No, we don't have to change as equals. We'll just do, instead of the add event response, it'll be response spy. We got rid of add event response.
Instead of add events response. Oh, like this.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. And so everywhere else we're doing add event response. Let's replace with response5. Yeah. Yes. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That should do it.
Okay.
Can we go to the very top and double check that we got rid of to the very, very top? We had a, yeah. All right, I think we're good. Okay. So this thing is still failing. And if we console log that data that we get back in the event, is it still have an error?
We're still console
Or is it
logging.
not hitting it anymore?
Oh, it's not hitting it at all.
Can we console log
Catch.
the catch? Yeah. Oh man. Here I am trying to be helpful. Missing field timeline event create while writing results.
Timeline event create is.
So did we set up, sorry, I disappeared for a few seconds. Did we set up to say when we call, we've got the create timeline event mutation and the response spy, and we've set the response spy up to return the right mock data from the mutation.
How does the timeline events create event response? Does it need, it probably needs date. Does it need the timeline event create? I see it just says timeline event on line 75 to the file on the right.
Sorry, I don't know what you mean.
The schema of the timeline events create event error and timeline events create event response, the schema is different for both of those.
Yeah, they do seem different, do they?
Maybe we should maybe we can give them the same schema, wrap it in data and this timeline event create thing.
Sorry, we're doing that on the mutation on this.
In the mock data on the right hand side.
Okay. Oh, just
yeah,
this.
Assuming that's what Paul meant.
I mean, does that make sense? I think we would need errors as a sibling to timeline event.
Ah, yeah.
Man, you're good with your keyboard shortcuts, aren't you? I need to learn some of these. These are awesome.
All right, let's see if it's still yelling at us. We scroll down to the that happened. Cannot read properties of null reading project.
That's what we were getting before in this data for cache. Because the cache needs the project or something.
No. Reading project. Can we go to what the mock events data looks like? Or let's maybe try to narrow this down by commenting out some line of code in the component.
Say that again,
the view component that we're testing. Can we comment out the update cache function on line 80?
Line 80, update cache.
Yeah, let's just comment that call out and see if that's where this is failing. Okay, that's where this is failing. That's great.
Cool.
We scroll up.
I don't quite understand what this is or what it's doing.
Black magic. this is supposed to be the bit that says take what's currently in the cache and append to it the data that's come back in the response from the mutation.
Oh, okay. Right.
I'm not able to explain it very well though, Paul.
Yeah, all right. No, that's fine. That makes sense.
So Emmer, which does these produce things, is really, really good at having us immutably update some level of state. And so, yeah, so that we don't have to refetch the whole query. And I know I just did this thing, so I could shimmy this object into here. We can use Emmer really nicely to just like, hey, we just inserted a value. Don't feel like you have to refetch everything. Let's just put it here when you make that query, if you feel like you need to make that query again. And that's what this is trying to do. But
I think it's saying one of them is, do you think, I can't remember where it was, like, would it be beneficial to dump source data and draft data, console log that in here to see what we're getting, and that might make more sense.
This might
well,
be,
I was thinking further down, like line 55, 56, maybe to sort of see, but it might help up here. I don't know. You tell me, Paul.
Let's use the debugger. Like let's put the debugger at the top of this function.
See if it actually works properly this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe it's not working properly because, like, I don't know, but like, is it actually running this properly, or is it like making some weird not browser? You know what I mean? Like, is it translating this to
Jess will
need
Jess will need to transfile this, and that could be what's happening. But maybe if we just throw an actual debugger, like you were going to just throw a debugger, I wonder if that'll actually stop execution.
And see it in the browser.
Well, no, I think if we we run it like this, yeah. Whoa, it's in a different place.
What's happening?
It's because we're getting, it's not. It's transpiled.
Oh, so strange.
So the code that we're looking at isn't actually the same as the source code, right? It's kind of almost compiled or.
Yep.
Well, that's some tricky shit.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, we can work on the browser if we really wanted to.
Yes, you can breakpoint it now. So.
All right. So let's go.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Data undefined.
You're not quite, you're still in the definition of the method at the moment. If you step it a bit further forwards, now you should have data.
Hooray.
This is like a learning experience for all of us.
Yeah, this is super cool.
So cool. We got timeline event. Huzzah.
All right.
We don't have any errors. That's great.
What's our problem?
So if we keep going, let's step over.
So our problem was with project. So it's probably here we have an issue, right?
Yeah. So now we're inside of Emmer trying to produce and have a new. What's draft data?
Draft data. This is null.
Source data, is source data null? On line 76, is it? We can also look at it variables up there. If you go back to block, if you go up to the next, if you go to closure, maybe. There's no source data.
You can, I think maybe in the debug console. I thought hovering over it would work, but the debug console. Sorry.
Here?
Where terminal is, so you've got output terminal. I'm pointing at my screen and so it's stupid hope. So
I can't write because it's
no. If you move your cursor up a tiny little bit, left.
Sorry.
Up.
Oh, debug console to the right. To the
right. You're so close. There you go.
Sorry.
In there. You should
be
able. No. We
so
need laser pointers of some sort, right?
That doesn't make sense.
No.
No, it doesn't, does it? But I don't really understand the compiled or transpiled code very well. So maybe the context, or I don't quite get.
So let's go back to the oh god.
Let's go ahead and run it again. But let's not dive into the produce function. Let's stop at right before we dive into this closure, and then we'll be able to
here.
see.
Do you mean?
Yeah, that'd be good. So we'll have to run it again and let it fail and run it again. So yeah, let's go. Time to press play. Oh yeah, here we go. You buggers.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oops.
We're gonna have to step one line next, and then we'll be able to read it.
So where's the step? Because the step over.
Right. Yeah,
I don't want to step over.
That's yeah. We'll step over. Yeah.
Okay.
And then let's do source data. Come on, source data. It's null. All right. Okay. So read query is not working. We are doing this cache write query thing. All of that's great, but what might be happening is that the variables aren't matching.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other thing that might be happening is we haven't wrapped that data on line 57. We haven't wrapped.
Oh, yeah. The variable, if I'm interpreting this correctly, the variable should be, I'm guessing, like the project.
Yeah. There it is on our debug window at the top left. There's the variables value. Maybe if we just copy that over into there, we'll probably want to use actual values, but if we just copy those into there,
I can't copy it. What?
It's fine. Yeah, I might have to just type in that.
Oh, type it manually? God, no. It's okay. It's fine.
But this is trying to read the get timeline events. Oh, yeah. No, that's right. Yeah. So it's timeline events for an issue, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Incident.
Cool. Sorry, I was thinking it was for a whole project.
An incident is and isn't an issue. It's fine.
No, that's fine. I'm familiar with work items and all that crazy.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna turn the debugger off.
Yeah. This now we don't even need to debug. We know this will work 100% first try. Let's do it.
Hang on.
Have the faith.
What's happening? I just want to run again. Yeah.
Woohoo! 100% first try.
Yes.
So this did
Come
run.
on, now change your fit back to an it and watch it all crash and burn.
So this, we can just use this, right? This is the same as this.
Is it?
Not
yes.
quite.
That line 60 is a global ID thing. So somehow that's the GraphQL ID. Oh, and I can see that's
a line because it does it here.
Yeah. So it would be nice to consolidate those magic test contents.
So can I just try this? See if that also works. And then we can.
I would be surprised.
Yeah, we'll want to use
because this should convert it, right?
But when you're setting up your initial data, so yeah, that's gonna convert it.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
When we set it up. Yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of it and see what happens. It was online like yeah.
We have faith, right?
Yeah. It's all gonna work. No problems.
Get rid of that.
No problems.
And we need time for Yannick's question as well, right?
Where are these logs coming from? So close.
All right.
This is it.
Yes. Hey.
So I do want to,
Thanks,
I want to
everyone.
question, Yannick, and I do want to just clarify, like, this setup of when we create the Apollo provider and manage using jest spies to just mutate the return value whenever we need to before we create the component. This is the most deterministic and simplest setup that I have discovered for myself when I use this stuff. You don't have to do it this way, but this has been helpful for me.
Am I right in thinking it's maybe slightly contentious as well? Some people are they're quite keen on passing the Apollo provider or mock Apollo or whatever is a variable to the create wrapper or create what's it called? Create, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people don't like this mechanism for doing it, but
some people don't like that, but it's really important that for every test, we only create one collaborator, because sometimes these collaborators leave around side effects. And if we create multiple of them, they can bump into each other. And that was my thought of what was happening, of why we're getting an error response when that wasn't happening in the blog. Who knows? And so, yeah, I don't like the let keyword, and I've created some really wild ideas for how we can ensure that only one collaborator is created per test, without needing this kind of let and before each. But this is just the nature of JavaScript testing. So, anyways, yeah, we're kind of at time, but yeah, I know. Sorry, Yannick, we didn't have time to dive into your thing. I have a little bit more time left if you want to spend some time on it, or
yeah, likewise.
Force anyone to stay if they're ready to not stay.
Before you do, I just have one question. What do you mean by deterministic?
So that's I'm not probably not using that word correctly. I actually not fragile, because the tests will most of the time happen deterministically. But what can happen is if I change the order of tests, they will all of a sudden break because certain tests are bumping into each other.
Oh, I see.
Sometimes tests also aren't deterministic, or even in the same order, you run them multiple times because they're dependent on some sort of date or random stuff. So we've tried to make them deterministic, but I use that word incorrectly. I actually mean fragile, and where tests are bumping into each other. So the order of the test can all of a sudden.
Is independent the word you're looking for, Paul?
That's a good word too. And making the tests independent from each other. Yeah. So we have, oh man, all the can of worms, it went from 10%, it's like 90% about to burst open, but I'm going to close it to see if we have 10 more minutes for maybe Yannick to share what you're working on.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully 5 will be enough. And if anybody needs to, seriously this time, and if anybody needs to drop, please feel free to. What I wanted to show you or ask your opinion about, and what I'm currently working on, let me drive the screen, is can you see something like a login page? Because I'm not quite sure if I'm showing. Awesome.
Yep.
This isn't GitLab's login page. This isn't GitLab page.
Have you unboxed it, Yannick?
I am currently working on a scam UI. That's what I am. No. So currently working on a redesign for our login page, and that is the current state of it. And the redesign and all of those things, these are kind of going good. But what is very interesting is regarding the way we handle integration tests. Because this MR, which includes this UI, is about 600 lines of diff. Well, like, it's huge.
Wow.
Our current login page is perfect, has a perfect test coverage. That's absolutely fine. And I was asking myself, like, okay, cool. I have redesigned this thing, and that is the important part. Functionality stays 100% the same. All of these changes are purely UI changes. There might be like a heading missing or something, but that is about it. Everything under the hood hasn't been touched, stays the same. So I kind of committed this, and the pipeline immediately went green because all of the tests were still running just as fine. Perfect. the thing with that is our R specs. So this feature is obviously behind a flag. When we do run our integration tests, the feature flag will be on by default. And that means that's actually so we're actually testing the new design. That's a good thing. But is that good enough? Like I was asking myself, okay, can I really push this forward without adding a single test, which didn't feel too good? And there might actually be a test gap, which I already discovered. Like if we agree on that the old sign-in page today has a good coverage, and we're now introducing the new one, which our tests will then be running against because the flag is on by default. If somebody decides to change the old version of it tomorrow, he or she would actually be able to break this. So therefore, that's something we might wanna, we definitely wanna cover. So here is how I am currently trying to fix this. I have just taken all the tests that are kind of related. Like this is where the 600-line diffs come from. And I'm doing a loop against my feature flag, and I'll be turning it on once and I'll be turning it off the second time, and I'll just run out of this. And that's the best solution I could think of. I still, it's kind of ugly since we're running a lot of tests and the loop is probably not perfect.
Oh, it's already a shared example. I'm thinking because it's a shared example, you would just, from wherever the shared example is being called, you would stub it as true. And then, but is this being called from a lot of different places?
I assume so.
And again, because I don't know if I've seen each. I'm sure it must be used, but you've obviously got those kind of table parameterized kind of R specs as well. I don't know if that's a preferred way of. I mean, you've only got the two values, so I guess it's much of a muchness, right?
I know what you mean. I'm not sure if I've like those tables, aren't they more of a jesting, or am I misunderstanding something?
No, if you search for, oh God, what is it? With underscore them.
Yeah. That's a really good movie.
Sorry, with WITH underscore them THEM for Mike.
Yeah.
With them. Ah, okay.
You will find table back, although it seems over complex. Your for each seems perfectly good to me, but I don't know if there's some rules and regs around.
The one thing you gain by doing the with them is it will there's some ways to configure this too, but it will include your parameters and the spec name automatically. And if you have more than just, one column that you're needing to iterate through, it can be really helpful. So, yeah, there's a whole parameterized spec feature to RSpec, which is my favorite. It's really cool.
So tell me, are these feature specs technically front end or back end?
And the ones we're looking at here,
because they're testing the front end UI, right? But is Ruby considered back end or?
Yeah, tough call. Like that's really intersectional stuff from my eyes. Like it is basically we'll be rendering a form, and those tests will be checking if this form does actually, if it does what it should be. Like has the request has been sent. That's kind of what we're after.
Okay, so I want to quell. Is that the right word? I want to quell one of your fears. Is that a word, or is it qualm?
Never heard it.
Squash?
I want to quash one of your fears. I think quell is the word I'm thinking of. Quell.
Maybe.
Put an end to a rebellion or other disorder, typically by the use of force. Let me quell one of your fears.
Are you using force, Paul? Bloody
no, I don't mean. I guess I don't mean that to the full extent. The end-to-end specs will run against. they will catch the feature flag off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something to consider, is that it's not like, oh,
is that the QA one? Sorry,
yeah,
Paul. Or...
yeah.
They, if I'm not mistaken, they're making 2 runs, 1 flags off and 1 flag on.
They run
Oh.
against, not quite. They run against real environments. So it would be based on like what the dev.gitlab.com environment is, or the staging one. So you can set the feature flag on for the QA specs, but like the ones that run for a pipeline, they're just going to run, and they're going to run without the flag on. You turn this on staging, then what's going to happen is the pipeline's going to run on staging, verify everything's good before we actually make a deployment, and it has to pass before we can deploy. So like deployments get blocked, the end-to-end tests fail. So I just want to clarify that as far as like testing different environments go, the QA specs should provide some reasonable amount of coverage of the flag being off.
So are you actually arguing for no changes on this MR? Is that what I'm hearing? Or no more tests?
No, I wanted to quell your
my fears on this.
The other so I don't know, tests are great. But if you are doing a pure refactor and you have good test coverage before, like there's not really a need to test, because those are all implementation details, and we don't do visual testing.
That's right. What I'm on the fence about is I do like this flag will probably not be merged and then turned on a day later. So there will be plenty of time frame to actually introduce an issue into the old version of the login page. Therefore, I feel like we really should have this covered. On the other hand, all those tests that we are running on staging and the different environments, doesn't really matter which feature they're testing, they will have to log in before that. So if we actually manage to break the login page, I expect to see a lot of red on our tests. So therefore, that's probably the best covered feature we're having.
Because you see, everyone has to do the user sign-in at every test.
Get there.
Does it actually go through the sign-in flow?
I have heard it does. Haven't seen it, but I've spoken to a test engineer and he told me.
Okay. Was that the QA spec will? But the feature specs may just write a cookie.
Possibly.
So that may be worth, it is worth being really careful about this, because the worst case scenario is highly significant incident one. Like if this breaks, it's really bad. Even if the back end all works, the front end breaking here could be really bad. So it is worth being really careful. And I think it is worth adding tests for feature flag on and feature flag off, of just double checking. This is users can't log into GitLab.com, right?
That's it doesn't get any reverse than that. Yeah, absolutely. So okay, given that,
the worst situation would be users can log in as each other on GitLab.com. That's probably the worst situation.
Well, that's right, but this situation is worse enough for me. I can tell you that.
Okay.
So,
come on, we've all brought GitLab.com down at least once, right?
Don't do it! Don't do it!
Okay, gotcha. What about the never minding the with them for a second? If we would go for the approach we'll be seeing on the left side, would that provide enough coverage, or is there anything that is ringing your bells where you'll be like, oh, watch out, we still have to cover X, Y?
So I see sign up name validation. So this is when they're signing up. They're all just about registering.
Yeah, this all comes together. Like it's basically one application. So sign in, registering, two-factor, all of these are kind of, they go hand in hand.
Okay. Are we still, is the redesign doing anything in Vue or is it all Haml?
It's all Hammer.
Okay. Definitely, I would think of just what are those worst case scenarios that could go wrong and how could we protect them? The worst case scenario, users can't sign in. So definitely want to verify that with flag on and off that I can go through the happy sign in path. Clicking on one of the providers is probably a good idea. Doing the two-factor authentication, going through that process is a really good idea. And I would also highly recommend reaching out to Paul GV. He just worked on this weird, I don't mean to say it's weird, but it was unusual. This unusual requirement for some like third-party CAPTCHA thing. So the CAPTCHA stuff could prevent, if that stuff isn't loading or talking correctly, that stuff could prevent people from signing in too. Those are four things that come to my mind. Just the normal sign in, clicking on one of the providers, two-factor authentication, CAPTCHA stuff / talking to Paul GV about the CAPTCHA stuff he was working on.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That's some great input. I keep that in mind. Paul GV was actually the first reviewer on this. So therefore we should be safe in that regard.
There you go. Yeah. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the feedback. That was it, basically. That was the just wanted to show you around and see if there are any concerns.
That's exciting. That's an interesting problem. And I do think just even though we're doing a pure refactor or pure redesign, the stakes of the redesign are so high, I think it does warrant tests. And so that is wise. I agree with what you're doing, Yannick.
Gotcha. Awesome. Sweet. That's what I had from my side. And we're way over time. So you want to wrap it up?
Thanks everyone for hanging out. Let's spend some time together working on some Apollo tests. Yeah, thanks James for bringing it up. Sorry we didn't get to your topic, Lee.
No. It's something that I'm gonna just chip away at, but I'll give props while we're here to that component. I don't know if you've worked with it, but it's super sweet. What did I say it's called? Something like paginated with search and tabs, or but again, that's you know, we work together on the making a generic CRUD form. It's awesome to see that we've got this generic list form that handles like searching, sorting, with a GL table embedded with tabs for like inactive, active, or open, closed.
That's really interesting. I haven't seen this before.
Have you not seen it before, Paul?
Wow, but this is so cool. So this is like a reusable.
Should I just let me see if I can just share my screen for like 5? I've definitely broken it. I'm going to share my screen anyway, just for like 5 seconds before we ditch. So this is it in its broken state. I'm going to hit F5 just in case. What's it moaning about? 5. I've broken the back end for sure.
Cool.
But yeah, it's
this whole block is all one component.
Yeah, it's one component. So we've got tabs, we've got a search, we've got a table, or a list as we call it, with sortable columns. And even this is part of the component, to be honest. So needs a bit of tweaking. I'm a little bit what's the word, disappointed how much we have to build in the back end. So I've had to build like more GraphQL resolvers to return the counts. I was kind of hoping there might be something clever that could reutilize the existing stuff, but it's awesome, you know. So maybe for another time, or I'll ping you guys on the MR if you're interested, because it's really cool.
Yeah, or maybe on the backend pairing on Monday we can maybe work on some of the backend stuff for it.
Absolutely.
It is funny when the component out of the box has so many front end features that backend has way more work than they anticipate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. So the first thing I had to do was create the counts backend GraphQL endpoints. And now I'm having to, because before it was all front end, it used to grab all of them and it did the sorting on the front end. So GL table did all the hard work. Now that it's paginated, the sorting has to happen on the server side. So I've got to basically write all of the code to handle all the sorting. So
how cool would it be if there was like a reusable like module to just say, hey, here's my customer's model. And then
if that's what you want to work on, Paul, then don't let me tell you can't.
All right. Well, I'll let you all
anyway,
go.
thanks guys.
Bye.
Been a pleasure. See you
Thanks.
later.